Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we're going to be talking about the solo debut album from Camila Cabello called Camila. So there's an unspoken and kind of uncomfortable truth about a lot of mainstream pop music. While it certainly helps to have a lot of talent, look, if you're in the right place at the right time with the right people, it doesn't really matter if you do or you don't. You're gonna find some success. Hell, on average, you're probably gonna get even more successful than folks that have talent but are lacking in either the place, timing, or people department. And on that charming and pleasing note, Camila Cabello, everybody. Okay, yeah, I know, that was really mean, I admit it. But there's also always been some truth to it, and not just about her in mainstream pop. Hell, more truth than I think a lot of people really want to admit. Hell, I remember both of my Fifth Harmony reviews when Camila was with the group, and she was always the weakest link, both as a singer and as an interesting pop personality. And thus, when she left, I actually thought Fifth Harmony got better on their self-titled release last year. And yeah, I know, I realize I'm pretty much the only critic who thought that, but I stand by it. And thus, when Camila Cabello started releasing singles and started collaborating with other artists, I was fully expecting her to flame out like every other girl group act who goes solo. I'm not too young to forget Nicole Scherzinger and what happened to the Pussycat Dolls in the 2000s. But then Havana happened. And you know what? I remember what I said when I reviewed that song on Billboard Breakdown. It was really the first time I actually had a hope that Camila could release something worthwhile, even if she did have Young Thug for backing. But when you also have 9 co-writers, including Pharrell behind you could almost hear the pop machinery and the pop industry muscling this into becoming a hit. As much as people don't want to admit it, the system can still do that. The system can still work on occasion. And thus, it was only a matter of time before we got that debut album. Short enough that it probably wouldn't cost all that much, even though it's not like Psycho spends all that much money on producers anyway, but also released in mid-January when there's literally no mainstream competition, and thus if it flops even with that, they could probably cut their losses. Now, if you can't tell, I was not expecting to like this. I was not looking forward to this album, especially coming with the forgettable follow-up single, Never Be the Same, that I heard some Camila fans not even really like that much. But hey, Havana was a good surprise. It's a good song. This could be too, right? Well, sadly, it really wasn't. Don't get me wrong, I don't really think Camila is a bad album. That's more because it's too abbreviated and undercooked to have all that much substance to get angry about. Seriously, I have heard demos and live albums that I've covered this year already that have more attention to detail and production than this does. I'm honestly a little bit taken aback how flimsy this sounds. I know that Psycho, and by extension Epic, doesn't really give their acts much of a budget, especially starting out, but this takes the cake, if it even could, given how frail and starved this record sounds. And I can't stress how much this is a really big issue right out of the gate, because as I've said, Camila Cabello is not a very good singer. She's pitchy, her breathy falsetto, it sounds awful, and even at her best, she's not exactly a force of unique personality or capable of conveying much sensuality or presence behind the microphone. But she's far from the first pop singer to have these issues, and the way you compensate for that is multi-tracking or adding some cushion around her vocals in the low end, or coaxing her compositions into lower registers that flatter her. Hell, that's one of the reasons I think Havana is a good song. It keeps her tone a little bit lower and lets her ride against backing vocals from Pharrell and Starrah. And if you looked at the producer credits across this record, you can probably attribute this most to Matt Beckley, because while there is a shade too much pitch correction on his other song, Something's Gotta Give, he clearly knows how to produce for somebody who sounds like Camila Cabello, as does Cockharrow on In the Dark. It actually sounds pretty good there too. But otherwise, the primary producers on this project are Frank Dukes and Louis Bell. And while Bell has some good credits beneath his name, and you could tell that he's trying to add a little bit more foundation here, Dukes has a fondness for these brittle, awkward tones on a lot of his work that just have nowhere near the support for Camila's delivery, or come across as clipped in a way that short circuits any sort of organic groove this album could develop. Why, for instance, was that guitar pickup so abruptly clicked on all these years in a way where the mix sounds like it's dropping out? It's only a little bit better on Real Friends, but here, there's no deeper foundation or bass guitar to accentuate any sense of groove or flow. Why was that beat that fizzy yet blubbery on She Loves Control from Skrillex not given fidelity that remotely matched those washed out guitars, or the incredibly tinny pickup of the acoustic guitar right at the front, and trying to force some reggaeton bounce even before the overmixed, incomprehensible vocal snippet gurgles through the drop? You can tell that was Skrillex. Now, if you've got steel drums on Inside Out playing off the very muted piano piano. Why is the beat so damn heavy just to crush them behind it and lose that melody? Especially if you're gonna place that piano melody right to the very front of Consequences, to the point of actually peaking in the microphone pickup. You know, the very next song on the album. These are slapdash, amateurish mistakes by the producers. I can't really blame Camila for this. And yet, as a whole, the production approach seems utterly misguided. Take organic sounding samples of melody, desaturate them, and then bury them midway to the back of the mix, and then add a percussion or rhythm pickup so brittle and so sharp right to the front that not only do you not get any sorts of depth or groove, the clashing fidelity of these tones becomes incredibly jarring and distracting. It doesn't flatter her voice at all. Now granted, sometimes the formula is shifted up a little bit. They aren't all bad. The thicker low end on In the Dark, it works okay, and I had some hope with the thicker rumble behind Into It, at least until I realized it was a weird mishmash of Little Too Late by JoJo and Sober by Lorde and a lot of that melody. And even though Young Thug is effectively sleepwalking through his verse on Havana, there is at least some decent swagger to that track. I like the horns there too, but then we have to get to the content, and I'll say this for Camila, she's got the same problem away from Fifth Harmony as they had on their last album. Not precisely bad writing, but kind of thin overall. And what gets exasperating about it is that it doesn't really help Camila Cabello stand out as a new pop singer, especially given that she does have writing credits on all of these songs. You get the encounter with an ex who's now in a new relationship on All These Years, and it doesn't really resonate with the same emotional complexity as, say, Someone Like You by Adele, who was around Camila's age when she wrote 21, so not a lot of an excuse there. And while Consequences gets a little bit closer, a little bit meatier, it's not like the metaphors or description of this relationship feels all that distinct or interesting. It's honestly kind of cliche. Part of this is the growing sense that Camila isn't quite sure what sort of pop star she wants to be just yet. She's most convincing on songs that have a little bit more sultry force, like on Havana, or the breakup moment of Something's Gotta Give, or even the hookup of Into It, where she's actually pretty convincing. But there's also this lingering feeling that she can't quite fully embody this with the distinctly high school feel of songs like Never Be the Same or Real Friends, or the awkward central idea behind Inside Out. I mean, I get the emotional metaphor, want to see the guy for his inside as well as his out, but the execution just kind of clumsy. And where this all comes through more pronounced is She Loves Control. It is a power trip of the song, but nothing really wrong with that. It's clear that she's having a good time, but at the same time, as a singer, she doesn't quite have the presence to make it feel convincing in the same way that a Rihanna or a Shakira really could. And you know what? I'd like to say some of this comes with inexperience, and she's gonna grow into this, but Camila Cabello was with Fifth Harmony for a number of years beforehand, and has shown more consistent competency on other tracks on this album, which means for Camila as a whole, I'm just left underwhelmed and kind of confused. I've definitely heard worse pop records around this time of year, but for an album that needed production really to support her voice as she grows into the solo act that she clearly wants to be, I can't deny that she was really let down on this project. And even then, it's more inconsistent than outright bad. And I'm still not all that impressed by Camila Cabello as a singer either, especially in comparison with a lot of her contemporaries who have more presence, firepower, wit, or intensity. For me, I'm sorry folks, it's a light 5 out of 10 and really just for fans at this point. Although considering how underweight it feels, I can imagine it's gonna be forgotten pretty damn quickly. Not really bad, but outside of Havana and maybe Something's Gotta Give, I'm not sure I'm gonna remember this. And I'm not sure you will either. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. Folks, I wanted to like this. Actually, I didn't expect to like this, but I hoped it was gonna be decent, but honestly, again, I wasn't lying. I'm probably going to end up forgetting it. But if you want to buy the record, links in the description below. And I got the poll up there for all you Camila fans to tell me how wrong I am. Beyond that, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. If you guys want to get involved in my scheduling process, the link to my Patreon is right over there. Where 3 times a week you guys get to vote on my schedule, and once a week for the higher tier contributors, you guys get to add albums, movies, or even a top 10 list to that schedule, and we just put out one of those right now. Oh, and if you want to see my schedule, check my Instagram, links in the description below. Beyond that, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.